The first thing I want to talk about right off the bat is, and we joked about this a little bit already, is the 95% pre-assembled claim. You know, I think we made a joke like we figured out why it's called the marathon, right? The marathon, it's because it takes a marathon to put it together, apparently. I stand by that claim. Upon looking at the website for it again, it did say, you know, in 95% pre-assembled kits. But come on, that's misleading at best. Like every person that I've talked to goes, yeah, it comes 95% pre-assembled, right? Well, no, it doesn't. It comes in 95% pre-assembled kits, and there's like a bunch of kits that you got to put together. And even still, I don't know that I classify the kits as 95% pre-assembled. I really just disagree with the claim. I think it's misleading, and the printer took quite a while to put together. Like for something that says it comes in 95% pre-assembled kits, I was thinking that we were going to be done building this in like a couple hours. I think we sunk what, close to 15 to 20 hours of build time into this. Yeah, 15 and 20. Like that's not a short amount of build time. So it's just something to keep in mind. I'd maybe like them to change that claim, or even make it like 75% pre-assembled kits. Like at that point, I'm like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. If it's in kits, 75%, yeah. But 95%, no, I'm not having that one. Next thing I'd like to talk about, and I touched on this a little bit in the screen function, is the screen itself. I don't know if we got a bad screen or if there's something funky going on or what, but the screen was really hot. Like it gets really hot. Like it's uncomfortable to touch, like it hurts to touch. And that's not good. I don't jive with that at all. Like if it's a screen, if it's a touch screen, you should be able to touch it without it hurting you, I think. I think that's reasonable. The other issue I had with the screen was that it just doesn't work very well. There was a lot of like misinputs, and I'd like touch something, and like, especially when you were typing on the little keyboard there, horrible. Like I would touch something and it just wouldn't register, or it's extremely slow, very laggy. So it was just frustrating trying to, you know, navigate it and use it. So I don't know. I haven't checked under the hood of this to see. It looks like they're using a CB1 to me. So it might be partially due to that. I'm not sure. But either way, not super impressed with that. CB1, I don't know. I have CB1s at home, and they're not usually that slow. So I don't know. Either way, the screen was really slow and borderline unusable. I'd say it was technically usable, but yeah, not my thing. So the next thing I want to touch on is the instructions. The instructions were fine. I found the diagrams to be very confusing. I think a little bit of color would go a long way. They're all just flat black and white. And the way that they have the pictures, like the diagrams made, it's just really confusing. You have to kind of orient yourself and figure out what you're actually looking at. They're not very well made. The physical text was fine, and I used a bit of the two of that and managed to figure it out, but I think they could really do a better job at the instructions, especially for the price that this machine comes at. Like, and I'd also like it if you could maybe include an actual book instead of just the USB. Like the online instructions are fine, but I know I'm a person anyways that I like to, if I have instructions, I like to have instructions in my hand. And you could print them out, but especially for a machine of this price point, stuff like that, I think it's reasonable to come with a physical instruction manual. I'll talk about the calibration of the machine now, some of the issues I had with that. And this will lead me into some more of the firmware stuff, which was the really big spot. I had a lot of issues with this printer, and the really big problem I have with this printer. So I already walked through a little bit how to do, I don't know where I put that, how to do the calibration. The problem that I had was the way that they were doing it. They had buttons, and you would put it in and then click send. But there was no feedback from that. So it didn't say, you know, oh, sent or this or that. It just said, like, you just click it and nothing would happen. So that was really confusing. It didn't feel like I was actually doing anything. And in some cases, I don't think I actually was. The first time I calibrated this machine, I thought I was gonna have to rewrite the firmware from scratch because like the first couple times I did it, it wasn't applying any of the changes I made. I figured out after, and this isn't in the instruction manual, it started working after when I did a calibration for another time. It just didn't work that one time I did it. I'm not really sure what that's about. Maybe I did something wrong. It's not I don't know. But either way, like just I would apply the changes and nothing would happen. It would just print the exact same thing out. So what I found is that if you're having that, you can copy the G code that it generates when you click send and then paste that right before the print starts. And that seemed to work really well. That made the changes. There was also no, and that tripped me up for a while, was there was no like save config button or whatever, save the changes made by this. So you kind of it just saves it automatically and you turn the machine off back on. But I was scared to turn the machine off because I didn't know if it was actually going to save the settings, and like the 40 minutes of calibration I did was just for nothing. The physical calibration print is pretty good. It was well designed. One big flaw is that as soon as the print was done, it would just freeze up the printer. Like you couldn't make any changes to anything. You couldn't start another print. The printer was just like frozen in place, and that happened every time. I think there was an issue with the NG code that they had in it. It wasn't ending properly, so it still said like it was like printing 99%, and I just couldn't do anything. So I would have to turn the machine off and back on again, which was a huge pain. And you know, I had to start writing down the numbers that I was getting in terms of calibration. That way I could, you know, start it. What I found was I would take it up to the point where you could see both colors, and then I would just stop the print and do the calibration from there. But that was really odd to me. I think if you have a calibration, like an included G code for calibration, it should work properly and not freeze your printer up when it's done. I found that to be really disappointing. But I think the calibration piece itself is designed well. I know I've seen these other places. I mean, it's a pretty easy thing to do. So, but yeah, I'd really like that to be fixed up, because that's, in my opinion, not acceptable for that to be happening. And then that's going to lead into some of the other problems I had with this printer, and mostly it's to do with the firmware. The firmware is half-baked at best. It feels like they went, good enough, let's release it. There was just some really baffling things to me. Like it felt like nobody had actually used it. And the other disappointing thing to me was that, you know, they'd partnered with, I forget his name, the fella, we'll put it on the screen, the fella who, some doctor over there who's apparently like a 3D printing wizard, to do all the firmware and this and that, and it just really disappointed me. So I was expecting, you know, this is gonna be great, this is gonna be, you know, an awesome firmware and this and that, but it was really disappointing. The first big thing was, of course, the calibration, not having it saved, nothing like that. A lot of the standard, like it runs Clipper. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. It runs Clipper. So a lot of the standard Clipper functionality stayed the same, like, you know, the bed mesh calibration, things like that, firmware, editing stuff. It's all good. But it was just really odd, weird bits to me. Like you can't choose which tool head you want to apply things to in the firmware. Well, you could choose temperature, but that was about it. So if I wanted to move tool head 1 this way, I couldn't do that. Or at least I couldn't figure out how to do it. It wasn't very clearly laid out. I could only move tool head 0 around using the move commands. Tool head 1 was just stuck in place. If I did any sort of function with the printer that activated tool head 1 over tool head 0, then it would start to move. So it was almost like I couldn't select tool head 1 to make changes to. It would just default to tool head 0, And then as soon as, you know, a change was made that changed it to tool head 1, then I was good to go. But it was certain things like that, very weird. Another couple weird things to me was that in the print end G-code, they have right at the end, power off. So as soon as your print ends, the machine shuts down, like fully shuts down. It doesn't go to sleep, nothing like that. It just fully shuts off. And I really dislike that. I really dislike that. That meant that, you know, the lights go off, fans go off, everything. So what ended up happening was that I was sitting in the room and I didn't have any lights on. But I mean, this light is really bright, so I just had that illuminating the room, and I was just working on some things. And then the print ended, and the room just went dark. So I had to like trip and fall to get over the printer. And after every print, you have to turn the printer off and back on again. And it doesn't save any of the configuration changes that you make before it powers off the machine. So let's say I had to adjust the Z offset or you know, anything that you might like. Because that's one of the big things with Klipper is you can adjust a lot of stuff on the fly. And that's part of what I love about it and what I use it for, because I run it on a lot of my printers at home, is just that flexibility in how you can change little things on the machine as it's going. But what would happen is that I'd make those small little changes, fine tune it, get it all good, and you can't save the configuration while the printer's running. So as soon as the print's done, it would just shut off the machine and all those changes I made would just be gone. So what that meant is that once I turned the printer back on, none of those changes would be there, and I have to do it all again the next print, and then it would just be gone again. The other annoying thing is that, you know, that meant that, or a couple times when I was doing prints on this, and then it would power it off at the end, it would just completely reset everything. I've never seen the power off script be used like that before or in a G code. I really don't understand why you would use it. It doesn't really, like, if it's cooling everything down, like, it's not gonna use a bunch of power. It's not gonna, you know, things aren't staying hot. So I don't really see the need to power the machine off. And yeah, there was a couple times where I finished a print, the machine powered off. I, you know, woke up in the morning, went down, checked on it, turned the machine back on, and it was just back to base zero. So I had to do all the calibration again. I had to do all the, you know, Z offset. I had to do all the bed mesh calibration. I had to do all the setup I did over again, which is, you know, not an insignificant amount of time. And it shouldn't be happening at all. The machine shouldn't be powering itself up. The machine shouldn't be clearing itself. Like, you've already done the calibration. That should just be done. Like, it doesn't need to be doing that. I don't understand it. And it was really, really annoying because, you know, I just want to be printing something. I don't want to, you know, do a half-hour print and then the machine shuts off and forgets everything that you did before, and then now you have to do another 2 hours of calibration again. Like, I just don't understand it. I'm not sure if I did something wrong. I don't know, but like, it's very disappointing to me. You know, especially like for a machine of this price, it's not an insignificant amount of money. If I had paid for this out of my own pocket, I would have returned this already. I would be extremely disappointed because it's just not ready to be released yet. I think the firmware is not finished. The firmware is good enough to technically work, but not good enough to release. So I'm not a huge fan of this machine as it is. Now I'll get into the one point I have that's a little bit of a double-edged sword, and then we'll move on to some of the good stuff, because there is some redeeming parts about this machine, and it's not a total loss. The one double-edged sword I had was this filament manual loading and unloading function. It's really cool, and it works pretty good. So basically, I'll give you the TLDR of it. If you push filament through the reverse Bowden into the hot end, into this right here, it'll automatically detect that there's filament in there and then heat the tool head up and load it in. You don't have to do anything, it just does it for you. It grabs it, brings it in, heats it up, loads it in. That'll do it for both. And then if you want to unload it, there's just a little button at the top. So you just push that and it unloads the filament for you. It's really cool and it works well. You can't select which filament is going in. It's just one preset temperature, which is 235. This machine is capable of doing materials that need hotter than 235. So if you're putting the material in, then you'll need to go in and manually up that temperature when it's extruding, which is not realistically the end of the world. It's not difficult to do, but I think, in my opinion, it would just be much better if you, if it just came with a little prompt. Like it just came up and it said, what are you using? PLA, PETG, ABS, you know, TPU, any of that, and then it had the temperature set for that, just so it knows what's going through. I think that would be a lot better, and it wouldn't be too hard to implement, I don't think. Could not, for the life of me, get the Wi-Fi to work. You can see the little Wi-Fi dongle's gone at the bottom there. I tried taking it out and putting a couple that I had at home on to see if it was just an issue with that, but no, I couldn't get it to go. I tried numerous different Wi-Fi networks. I tried the ones at here, I tried the ones at home. I even took it to my buddy's place. I was like, look, is there just something weird going on? Because I think he was on Bell instead of Rogers. No, couldn't get it to go. So I ended up the hard wiring still worked, so I just plugged it in, but it definitely limited the places that I could keep it because I had to have it near a Ethernet port, which is a bit of a bummer. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, I couldn't get that to work. So that's my last major gripe with this, I promise. And now we're going to get on to some of the positives, because there are some positives with this machine. First of which being this tool head design. I actually really like this tool head design. I think it's really cool. It's nice and modular, like you can just pop all the panels off. It's pretty compact, but still very powerful. I found I didn't have any issues with jamming or anything. It has a nice amount of pushing power, nice flow rate. It comes with a hardened steel nozzle by default and uses a CHC heater, so you get nice even heating, nice fast heating. And that load unload button I already talked about, I do like that, even if it could use a little bit of changing. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of these tool heads. I think they're really cool. I'd like to see these implemented, you know, in other ways by this company on other machines, because I think it's actually a really good tool head. I'm really a fan of it. And I think I'm a fan of the build of this printer overall. It is very well built. Regardless of the claims of 95% and all that, it's a very well made machine. You know, it's using nice chunky ball screws for all three of your beds, or all three bed points. It's using linear rails along with those ball screws. You have linear rails on your X, Y, and Z. So everything is just really sturdy, really well built. They didn't come lubed from the factory, so I did have to lube that myself, which is not the end of the world, but would be maybe nice if it came lubed from the factory. I think it's not that difficult to do. The ball screws were, but the linear rods weren't. The other nice thing is this frame is solid. It's like really well built. So the machine has a lot of good potential. The bed is really nice, thick aluminum, so like it's very flat. I think on the bed mesh I did, I was looking at a deviation about 0.1 millimeters, which is pretty good, like from end to end. So it's very, like, the machine itself is really well built. If the firmware was just a little better, it would be a strong recommendation from me. But the firmware is really what kills this machine, because it has such good potential. As a machine, like the enclosure, the IDEX, the bed is really nice, the size is nice, you know, just the ball screws are nice. It has everything that I would want in a printer. Just the firmware kills it, because it's just terrible firmware. So I think if they can go back and fix this printer, like the firmware for this printer, then it's going to be much better. In its current state, no, I just can't recommend this printer. You know, I didn't even pay for this printer. I'm just reviewing it, and I still felt ripped off. And it's bad when you feel ripped off by your $0 printer. So it needs a lot of work, but it has really good potential. And that's where I want to kind of leave this video, because I struggled a lot, and I know we had some comments and people in the store and stuff being like, oh, you guys never followed up on the marathon. But in reality, we were trying to get it done as fast as we could. It really took us a long time because it was such a difficult thing to make. I wanted to try and find a good angle in this machine, but it just took me a while to get everything done. It took a lot longer it took a long time to assemble it. We thought we were going to be done in like a couple hours. It took a lot longer than that. It took a while to tune it. It took a while to assemble it. There was issues I had to figure out with printing it, things like that. So, all in all, we got it done now at least. You get it at some point. But I think that's where I want to leave this video, is that it's a good, well-built machine. It just struggles in the firmware department. Let us know what you think. Of course, leave your likes, your comments, subscribe, all that. And let me know what you think. Let me know about the firmware. Let me know if there's anything else you want to see printed on this machine. We have it now, so it's set up, so we can have a go. But yeah, anyways, thank you for watching. Hope I wasn't too ranty about this, but it is what it is. All right, take it easy.